Hello caffeine fiends and welcome to another coffee video for www.getbean.com. I'm Vince the Mean Bean Machine, and today we'll be looking at what you should be looking for when tasting your coffee. Now obviously this channel and my website does a lot around the different flavour profiles of different coffee beans, different companies, different roasters. So I thought I'd kind of run through how you identify those flavours that I kind of pick out, what sort of flavours you should be looking for, and what you should be looking for largely in espresso coffee. So when trying espresso coffee and sampling it, you should be looking for three main things: aroma, body, finish. Now aroma is fairly obvious, what it smells like. Aroma is the first thing that you're going to get off of the beans, off of the espresso shot, off of your coffee in general, and it's closely linked to taste. Smell and taste are very closely linked, so it's not necessarily, all of these different sections are not necessarily distinct from each other. They are all very kind of intertwined. But aroma is the first thing you're looking for. What does it smell like? What memories does it trigger, if anything at all? What are you getting from that first sensation? Now, body is the density of the coffee on your tongue. It's how thick and dense it feels. Does it coat the tongue like a syrup? Is it too watery? Does it just slide down? Does it have kind of a lot of body, so a lot of kind of intense density? Does it feel almost, food-like in that? And what are you getting from that? What sort, again, you're looking for the sensation of it. What are you getting from that body? And finally, finish is that aftertaste that lingers afterwards, that kind of final push through of taste, that you just kind of go, oh, I didn't get that initially, but now this aftertaste is coming through. There's a lingering, sensation on the tongue. And what am I getting from that? Is that different to what I initially had? Is there something slightly lighter about it, slightly denser, slightly darker? Does it change your overall view of that coffee profile? So those are the three main things you're looking for. Now, as you may have noticed, behind me is this very interesting poster, and this is a coffee tasting flavour wheel. Now, the people over at the Specialty Coffee Association went out into the world and asked kind of coffee roasters what profiles they are getting from their coffees. So what flavours? How would you describe those flavours? And they built up this big book called the Lexicon of Coffee, and they found kind of reoccurring tones and notes appearing all over the place. So they compiled this book saying, well, these are the most common ones that appear. We think this is the same as this. And with this lexicon, they created the Coffee Tasters Flavour Wheel. And basically, this is a sort of universal way of identifying flavours from all over the world. So most specialty coffee roasters use something akin to this flavour wheel, and it's how you basically pick out similar flavours from, so I can try a coffee here in England and go, oh, that has fruity, berry, raspberry flavours. And then I can go to the other side of the world, let's hypothetically say Brazil, try another coffee and go, this has similar tones, but I can't think of the words right now, but I remember if it's a similar tone to the one I tried back home, then it's fruity, berry possibly, and then even further raspberry. Now I'll show you how the flavour wheel works and how you break down those flavour profiles. So, as we've already established, the flavour wheel is just kind of a universal lexicon of words of how you describe different flavour profiles. And it's broken down into several sections so you can help kind of further identify those flavours. So it works in such a way that you take a sip of your coffee and then you start in the inner ring. So what the SCA has done is broken down those kind of initial flavours into kind of a few core components. So you have sweet, floral, fruity, sour or fermented, green/vegetative, other, roasted, spices, nutty, cocoa. So those are your starting points. So you take a sip and you kind of let the coffee run over your tongue. You are also doing this with aroma. What are those aromas? And you kind of take those smells and those tastes, and you try and identify which one of those is the most prominent, which one of those first in that ring is most prominent. So if I've got a nice, let's say, Kenyan coffee, I've taken a sip and I'm going, okay, there's some very strong flavours coming through there, but initially I feel that it's quite floral. It's quite light on the tongue. It tastes a little bit flowery. So we go straight into the floral section. So we've identified floral, but then we can further break down those identities into the next two categories on the next ring of the wheel. So the next two categories in floral are literally only two: black tea and further floral, right? So does it have a tea sensation? Does it taste like oolong, or does it taste like a bit like your kind of morning breakfast tea? Now, with flavour tasting, we know that a coffee doesn't taste like tea, it tastes like coffee. But you break down the flavours you're getting and you find, what is it most reminiscent of? Is it most reminiscent of cocoa? It's not going to taste like chocolate, but do those sensations trigger a memory of chocolate? Trigger a kind, do you go, oh, there's a chocolatiness to it? Yeah? In the same way, you don't go, that coffee tastes like apricots. However, you do go, there's a sort of acidic tone similar to apricots. And that's where you kind of break down this ring. So as I was saying, we've identified it's floral and it doesn't taste like black tea. So we move into the next floral section. So what sort of, flower or plant is it tasting like? Does it taste of chamomile, rose, or jasmine? Yeah, all very distinct flavours, but they all come under the umbrella of floral. Oh, and then you can kind of go, okay, so I've identified it's floral. You can take another sip and go, but what type of floral? Still very flowery, not too much like tea. Okay, lovely. So we maintain the kind of floral route. What sort of floral flavour are we getting? Does it taste like chamomile? Does it taste like rose? Does it taste like jasmine? Yes, I think it tastes like rose. Lovely. We've got our first flavour profile on the board, our first tasting note. So we go back to square one. You take another sip and you go, all right, I'm getting very kind of highly, let's pick one that's got a lot of options, shall we? So I'm getting very roasted notes. It tastes very roasted, and I mean all coffee is roasted, but you're getting a roast through, that's slightly not burnt necessarily, although you'll note burnt is an option, but you get that roasted kind of sensation. So you think to yourself, what other roasted things are there? So you've got cereal, it breaks down into cereal, burnt, which is not necessarily a good thing. You don't want burnt coffee, but it is a tasting note in terms of what sort of burn you're getting from it. Tobacco and pipe tobacco, okay? So you take this second sip and you go, I'm not getting tobacco sensations or pipe tobacco. What sort of burnt sensation am I getting off? I'm not getting cereal, which is kind of malty and grainy. It's definitely a burnt roast, all right? So you kind of go, is it a brown roast? So a bit darker, quite heavy. Is it smoky? Do you get a smoky sensation? Do you get an ashy sensation, or do you get an acrid sensation? Now, burnt is not, like I said, particularly great, but those are the sensations you can pick out. And you go again until you've kind of identified all those flavours. So it's quite simple in terms of you start in the centre, identify what notes you're getting. You start, and then you progress out into the second ring, and if there's an options beyond that, you can go to the third. And you do that for your aroma, for your body, and for your finish. So you can identify, so you can say, you know, I got a sweet brown sugar aroma from it, and the taste was actually more kind of nutty and cocoa. In fact, I got a lot of chocolatey from it, so I identified cocoa, but it was quite a dark chocolate. It wasn't light and milky and creamy. Lovely. But the finish I got was nutty. What sort of nut? It was quite a smooth sensation, hazelnut, and it just lingered on the tongue. And there you go, there are your tasting notes. Now that's a very basic way of breaking that down, but that's where you start. And all these sensations have been sort of broken down and categorized nice and easily. So that is how I am identifying my coffees, what flavors I'm identifying. A lot of you may ask, can you identify flavors that are outside of the wheel? And of course you can. Of course you can go, oh, that tastes very much like X, Y, or Z. It's very reminiscent of something that's not in the wheel. However, for a sort of universality, you would refer back to the wheel. So you'd go, you get this a lot with certain specialty coffees where they try to make it very intriguing, very, you know, branded in such a way. So you get a lot, certainly within sweet, referring to specific sweets. So I've had a coffee where you'd go, that said, tastes like candy floss. And you go, okay, so candy floss is not on the wheel, but you can identify it as sweet. Not brown sugar, but it's definitely, you know, in the sweet, you know, spectrum here. So you know it falls into this spectrum. So it's not brown sugar and it's not vanilla, but you know it probably falls somewhere in between those two, and they've just kind of put a label of their own onto it. So you know that it's around here. The same would go for, I don't know, certain fruits that are not in the fruity section. So you've got coconut, cherry, pomegranate, pineapple, grape, apple, peach, pear. Now the amount of, and then more as you move into berry, blackberry, raspberry, blueberry, strawberry, grapefruit, orange, lemon, lime. Yeah. What's interesting about that is that apricot comes up so often in tasting notes, and it's not on the wheel, but you know it falls into fruit. It's somewhere between kind of citrus fruit and other fruit. It's not a dried fruit. Well, it is a dried fruit, so it's probably more to the top end here, but it's also quite citrusy. That's why they use apricot. So you know it falls somewhere between kind of these fields, and you kind of taste it again and you go, actually it's quite acidic, so it probably leans more towards citrus fruit, and it falls in between the two. So you know it's somewhere on that spectrum, and that's how they identify kind of new tasting notes. Now, that's not a complete overall overarching view of kind of coffee tasting and whatnot. It takes years of training and specialist training, and there are people far better at identifying flavours and pulling them out than I. And also, you know, that have been in the industry longer and can kind of go, well, yes, you start with the wheel and then you can use these things. But much like kind of wine tasting or whiskey tasting, it's what you get from it. It's what brings back kind of a reminiscent sense. And a lot of the time you can taste a coffee and go, that's disgusting, it tastes like bleach. Yeah? But from a professional standpoint, you don't go, that tastes like bleach. You go, right, other chemical, rubber, skunky, petroleum, medicinal, salty, bitter. You'd probably go medicinal, taste like bleach, but you can't say tastes like bleach. So you'd go, yes, this has medicinal tones, and it's all very kind of, you know, it's very up itself in a certain sense, but it's just a way of kind of universally identifying those tones. So I hope you can use this knowledge. You can get many different coffee tasters flavors wheels from all over the place, but they'll all roughly look like this, and it is the SCA that kind of categorise those flavours, so I'd recommend checking them out and picking up one from them if you're interested. Otherwise, take care, do like and subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you for more coffee videos in the future. Thank you very much. Bye bye.